Hi, I'm Eli, and before I dive into my story, if you find any part of it resonates with you, please like and subscribe for more. Now let's get into it. It was another one of those gloomy Seattle evenings where the rain seemed to mirror the chaos inside my house. I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee, trying to steady my nerves. The phone had rung 30 minutes ago. It was Mom, her voice frantic, pleading. Eli, your brother needs you. It's serious this time. His condition. It's gotten worse. And the treatments. We can't afford them, she'd said, barely catching her breath. I sighed, running my hands through my hair. This wasn't the first time, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. My brother Ryan had been the family's focal point ever since he was diagnosed with a chronic illness as a teenager. Everything revolved around him, his needs, his health. Meanwhile, my achievements, my struggles, hell, my existence, seemed to fade into the background. The room felt colder as I remembered my last visit home. Dad had pulled me aside, his expression stern. Listen, Eli, it's high time you stepped up. We're thinking of remortgaging the house, but if you could just contribute? Bail you out? Is that what you're asking? I'd interrupted, frustration boiling over. He didn't flinch, just nodded as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Now, sitting alone, those words haunted me. I looked around the modest apartment I'd fought so hard to call my own, thinking of the sacrifices I'd made to build a semblance of stability, away from the chaos of my family. The phone rang again, snapping me back to reality. It was Mom once more. Did you think about what we discussed? Ryan really needs... I can't do this anymore, Mom. I've helped as much as I can, but where does it end? When do I get to say that I need to take care of myself? I said, the words heavy with a mix of guilt and relief. There was a pause on the other end. So, you're just going to abandon your brother? Your family? Her voice was a mix of anger and disappointment. I'm not abandoning anyone, I need to live my life too. You've made your choice, and I have to make mine. The line went dead, and the silence that followed was deafening. I knew what this meant. Choosing my well-being was a direct ticket to being ostracized from the family. But deep down, I felt a spark of hope, a sense of freedom. Over the next few days, the calls and messages came in waves, some pleading, some condemning. I listened, responded when necessary, but held my ground. It was one of the toughest decisions I'd ever made, but as each day passed, I felt lighter, more resolute. I started to reclaim my life piece by piece, no longer overshadowed by Ryan's constant crises. One evening, while scrolling through old messages from my family, I stumbled upon a message from Ryan himself. It was old, from a better time, and reading it stirred a mix of nostalgia and pain. His words, once a comfort, now felt like chains I had willingly shed. Turning off my phone, I looked out the window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to travel, and mine alone. Life has a way of bringing the past back around when you're least prepared. As I sat in my apartment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the city, a series of knocks jolted me from my thoughts. At the door was Marco, my best friend since high school, and the one person who'd seen the entirety of the storm my family could brew. Hey man, Marco greeted, stepping inside and shaking off the rain. You've been MIA, everything all right? I managed a half smile, motioning for him to sit. Just the usual family drama, you know how it is? Marco nodded, his face etched with concern. Still about Ryan? Yeah, it never ends, I said, my voice a mix of resignation and bitterness. You remember how they used my college fund for his treatments, without even asking me? He winced, recalling the incident. How could I forget? You had to work 2 jobs and take out loans just to make it through. The memory was still sharp, a reminder of the many sacrifices made at the altar of my brother's needs. It was always about him, Marco. His health, his future, and I was just there, expected to contribute, to make sacrifices, never asking for anything in return. Marco leaned back, his eyes scanning the sparse setup of my living room. And now? They wanted more money, threatened to cut me off if I didn't cough up for the latest round of treatments. And what did you say? I told them no. I told them I couldn't keep doing this to myself. The words felt raw, honest. Marco nodded, his expression turning serious. You did the right thing, Eli. You can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. The conversation drifted to lighter topics, but the weight of my family's expectations hung over us like a dark cloud. After Marco left, I found myself pulling out an old photo album from a dusty shelf. Flipping through, I saw pictures of Ryan and me, from childhood to our awkward teenage years. In every photo where he was smiling, I stood slightly apart, my smile more reserved, cautious. That night, as I lay in bed, the old feelings of neglect gnawed at me. How many times had I stood by, playing the second fiddle to a brother who never acknowledged my sacrifices? How many family gatherings had I attended where praises were sung for Ryan, while I received polite nods and indifferent glances? But amidst these swirling thoughts, a firmer resolve settled within me. I was no longer that overshadowed kid. I had my own path now, one that I had forged with hard work and determination. Turning off the light, I decided that the next day would be different. I would start taking steps to mend the financial wounds of my past, beginning with the student loans that still lingered like old scars. Morning brought a crisp clarity. I called my loan officer to discuss restructuring my payments, a conversation that left me feeling empowered. Taking control of my finances was a tangible way to reclaim my life, to stand on my own 2 feet without the shadow of my family's needs darkening my doorstep. As the day progressed, I made another decision, one that would change the course of my life. I started looking into therapy, a step towards healing the deeper wounds left by years of familial neglect. It was time to address the emotional turmoil, to find peace, and maybe, just maybe, to forgive. But not to forget. Years had passed since I last spoke to my parents. My therapy practice had become more than just a career. It was a sanctuary for others who, like me, needed to find their footing in the whirlwind of familial chaos. As I helped my clients navigate their struggles, I strengthened my own resolve and understanding of my past. One late autumn afternoon, as the leaves danced their way to the ground, signaling another change in seasons, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in years. It was Mom. The sound of her voice, frail and weary, pulled at something deep inside me. Eli, it's your mom. We need your help, she stuttered, the words heavy with a desperation I had never heard before. I paused, letting the silence fill the space between us. What's going on? I finally asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil her call stirred within me. It's your father. And the debts, Eli. We're drowning here. After all the money we put into Ryan's treatments and his mistakes, we've hit rock bottom. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. The old resentment surged, a familiar bitterness. But years of therapy and self-reflection had taught me the power of boundaries. Mom, I can hear you're in a tough spot. But what exactly are you asking of me? There was a pause, and then, we need financial help, Eli. Any amount would make a difference. The request hung in the air, an echo of countless demands from the past. I took a deep breath, searching for the balance between my newfound peace and the ties that still bound me to them. I can offer you advice on managing the debts, maybe some contacts to financial advisors, but I can't give you money. But Eli, your father, we might lose the house, she pleaded, her voice cracking with fear. I understand, Mom, it's tough, but it's also a result of choices you've made, not just now, but throughout the years. I can help guide you through this, but I can't fix it for you. The call ended with an uneasy truce. She accepted my offer to send over some contacts for financial counseling, but the disappointment was palpable. After hanging up, I sat back, the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. I felt a mix of emotions: guilt for not fulfilling their request, relief for maintaining my boundaries, and sadness for the pain they were experiencing. It was a tangled web of feelings that no amount of professional training could fully untangle. Over the next few weeks, I sent my parents the promised contacts and checked in on them from a distance, ensuring they were taking steps to mitigate their financial crisis. The updates from Mom were short, laced with a mixture of gratitude and lingering hope that I might change my mind about the money. One evening, while reflecting on the recent interactions with my parents, Ryan called. His voice was soft, different. "Hey, Eli," he began hesitantly. "I heard about the call with Mom and Dad. I'm sorry for everything." It was the first time Ryan had ever acknowledged the role he played in the dynamics of our family. The apology, unexpected and sincere, opened a small window to a conversation that had been decades in the making. "We need to talk, Ryan. There's a lot we have to sort out," I responded, my voice firm yet open to the possibility of reconciliation on new terms. As the call ended, I realized that this was a new chapter for all of us. My family's struggles with Ryan's issues and their financial woes were far from over, but the conversation we started that day promised a new direction, one where honesty and boundaries defined our paths forward. The memory of the day I walked away from my family's demands was still vivid in my mind. It was the day I truly understood that my value to them had been measured not by my love, my efforts, or my presence, but by the financial support I could provide for Ryan. As I moved forward, building my therapy practice and helping others find their peace, that painful realization became a cornerstone of my own healing. Months turned into years, and the fragile communications with my parents had gradually become more respectful, though still strained. I had set firm boundaries, and to my surprise, they had slowly begun to accept them. However, the true test of how far we had all come was yet to come. One crisp fall morning, as the city awoke under a blanket of fog, my phone rang. The display showed my father's number, a rarity in itself. Bracing myself for another plea for help, I answered the call. "Eli, it's Dad," his voice came through, unusually calm. "I know we've asked too much of you in the past. We're not calling to ask for money this time. We just want to see you. It's been too long." The invitation was simple yet loaded with years of unspoken regrets and misunderstandings. I paused, taking a moment to process his words, to judge the sincerity behind them. "Why now, Dad? What's changed?" There was a heaviness to his sigh. "We've started seeing a financial counselor, the one you recommended. It's helped a bit. But more than that, Ryan, he's been getting better, managing his life better. We've all been doing some thinking and, well, we miss you, son." The conversation that followed was tentative but genuine. For the first time, it felt like we were speaking not as debtor and creditor, but as family. We agreed to meet, setting a date for a dinner at their house. Walking up to the family home after so many years felt surreal. The garden was as unkempt as ever, but the house had a new coat of paint, perhaps a sign of the new beginnings my father had hinted at. Dinner was awkward at first, with everyone tiptoeing around the past, but as the evening wore on, the conversation began to flow more freely. Ryan was there, quieter and more reflective than I remembered. At some point, he turned to me, his eyes meeting mine. "I never thanked you, Eli, for all those years you supported us when I couldn't. I took it for granted. I'm sorry it took me so long to see that." The apology was a balm to old wounds, a moment of validation I hadn't realized I needed. "Thanks, Ryan. That means a lot. Let's just try to move forward from here." As the night drew to a close, I left their house with a mixture of emotions. There was no sweeping resolution, no dramatic reconciliations, but there was a sense of progress. Walking away all those years ago had been the catalyst for change, not just for me, but for my entire family. We were learning, all of us, that the ties that bind can also be the ties that heal, given time and respect. Driving back to my apartment, I felt a cautious optimism. Perhaps after all these years, we could build something new, not forgetting the past, but not allowing it to define us either. The city lights blurred past, a shimmering backdrop to my thoughts of what might come next. As the city skyline faded into the background, the clarity of my decision years ago, to walk away from my family's incessant demands, resonated within me more deeply than ever. That decision, made during a time of immense personal turmoil, had been both a shield and a cornerstone, protecting my self-worth and enabling me to build a life grounded in emotional well-being. In the solitude of my apartment, surrounded by the quiet evidence of my new life, books on psychology, framed diplomas, and small mementos of my journey, I reflected on the path that had brought me here. The pain of severing ties with my family had been a crucible, burning away the ties of obligation and guilt, but leaving behind the essence of what was truly important: my integrity and happiness. Over the years, my therapy practice had not only been a career, but a daily reaffirmation of my commitment to helping others navigate their paths without sacrificing their own needs. Each client who walked through my door was a reminder of where I had been and what I had overcome. Their progress and breakthroughs were a mirror to my own healing, each step forward for them also a step forward for me. I often shared snippets of my own experiences, carefully curated to encourage and not to overshadow, which helped bridge the gap between therapist and client. It was during one such session, with a young man struggling with familial pressures, that I truly understood the impact of my decision all those years ago. "You've got to carve out space for yourself," I told him, our chairs positioned to foster openness and trust. "Your worth isn't measured by how much you can carry for others, but by how well you care for yourself." Later that evening, as I walked through the park, the city sounds blending with the rustle of autumn leaves, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ryan, simple yet profound. "Thanks for tonight. It's a new beginning for us all." I stopped, looking out over the park, the city lights reflecting off the pond, turning the water into a canvas of moving gold. Ryan's message was a testament to the enduring strength of family bonds, reshaped but not broken by the trials we had faced. It was a reminder that while we cannot change the past, we can influence the future through our actions and decisions. As I continued my walk, I felt a deep sense of peace. The journey had been long, and at times painfully solitary, but it had led me to a place of balance and understanding. My decision to protect my emotional well-being had not only preserved my self-worth, but had eventually opened a pathway back to my family, one that was healthier, respectful, and real. The night air was crisp, and as I returned home, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, a silent nod to the enduring human spirit's capacity for growth and reconciliation. Lying in bed that night, I realized that this chapter of my life, like all those before it, was a blend of shadow and light, pain and healing. And as I drifted off to sleep, I was grateful for it all, for every moment that had led me to this serene acceptance of life's complex, beautiful tapestry. That brings us to the end of this story. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, I have a question for you. Do you believe cutting ties with family to preserve one's self-worth and emotional well-being can ever truly lead to healing, or does it leave an irreplaceable void? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And if you found this story resonating with you, or if it sparked any thoughts, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Your support means a lot, and it helps us continue to bring you stories that touch the heart and provoke the mind. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to reading your insights and stories in the comments.